Welcome to this episode on Embodied Ascension, your next level of spiritual mastery. I'm super excited to dive into this topic of embodied spirituality, embodied ascension, and that your path of evolution, elevating your consciousness, changes just like you evolve. And so, in this Leading Wave podcast, the guides and myself are really going to unpack some of the needle movers to really get current with your spiritual embodiment, your spiritual practices. So I'm going to bring in the guides right away and super delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much for tuning in and let's go. Hmm. Hello, dear ones. This is Thoth and an expanded council of light and love, moving more into the forefront of this divine transmission. We are delighted to share this space with you, this energetic environment with you. For, as you know, this is not your first rodeo when it comes to elevating your consciousness, spiritual growth, inner work, personal growth. You are on a path of awakening, of spiritual mastery that you have invested in over many now moments, including in this lifetime and past lives. And in the larger context of the evolutionary cycle, there has been a lot of changes, even vibrationally. If we look back at 2012 to the time of this recording is 2025, just in the last 13 years, things have changed when it comes to consciousness and your consciousness and the energy of the planet. You can see this externalized in advancement in physical plane technology or things that didn't used to exist 20 years ago that now do. And yet the awareness that consciousness has changed, the frequency of the vibration of the Earth star has elevated, has sped up. And so, if you find yourself in a spiritual or a material plateau, it may be because you aren't current with the larger environment, the larger energetic environment that has changed, and that you're not current with the most aligned, embodied spiritual practices that are current for you in your life, in the stage of your life that you're in, at the level of consciousness that you have. And so that really is two things. So we want to break it down a little bit more. The one is the larger evolution in consciousness, the shift from the old paradigm to the new paradigm that has already happened. It has already happened. It may look more like duality and separation and survival than ever. However, the consciousness sleep in the larger context has already happened. And now what your spiritual charge or quest or work is, mastery is in really embodying those higher states of consciousness on a regular basis, So catching up to that things have shifted and things have changed. So that's the great news, right? That the evolution in consciousness has been happening, continues to happen. And then you are ascending and descending into the version of you that is living in that embodied state of ascension, of spiritual mastery, of elevated consciousness. And so that's the first part. The larger context is really supporting living in a higher vibration. We know it may not look like that, it may not feel like that yet, and don't just take our word for it. Really tune into your inner knowing. You know the vibrational quality is different than it was when your physical body was born, however many now moments ago in this incarnation that was. Or if you contrast a past life where you may have, let's say you had a past life in India and you were washing the temple floors with milk to get one yogic kriya, that you were washing the spiritual practice of cleaning the temple floors for years to get one tool. And that's a very different spiritual practice. Or maybe there was another lifetime where you lived in a monastery or were uh, somehow in a temple environment where all of your physical needs were taken care of, and your primary focus was your relationship with the divine, that going into the cave. That's a different spiritual practice than your daily life in modern 2025. And so some of those uh, some of those spiritual practices that have gotten you to the level of consciousness that you have now may have lost their juice. They may have lost their momentum. And it's not that any of those practices are wrong or bad. It's that at certain times in your evolution in consciousness, your elevation in consciousness, you require something very precise and very unique to really elevate to that next level of consciousness. And elevating your consciousness, it's not a straight line. It's not that one size fits all. You're unique. What you desire and require for your divine plan in this path in this lifetime is unique to you. And so that's also something really beautiful to recognize, and that your uniqueness may you may also notice that even in a given day you can feel so multifaceted or so multidimensional that some of the spiritual practices that may have gotten you here begin to feel outdated. They begin to uh, lose their juice because you've embodied them, because they've served their purpose, and because the next level of spiritual advancement, of spiritual mastery, of spiritual nourishment hadn't been accessible. It hadn't been available yet. And and so just like you may have been using a tool, like maybe you have a scissor in your house, and you find that you're using that scissor all the time, like a multi-usage tool, or that you have tape and you're using tape for everything, and or you have a hammer and you're using hammer for everything. And when you evolve your consciousness in this very applied spiritual way, what we're calling embodied ascension, because your body needs to come with you, your physical life needs to elevate to move into a higher vibration. so that you're not feeling split between spirit and matter, or your higher self is out there and you're stuck like in density and 3D slower vibrational energies. That using that kind of universal tool for all different things, it doesn't even make sense. Yet when you have this beautiful toolbox that's very refined and very like, sure, you still may use scissors and you may use tape, yet you might be using the laser of sound to cut through something, or uh, to bring something back together. And so we just invite you to kind of tune into also your spiritual evolution, because sometimes you may not take the now moments. Like if you were to spend 5 or 10 minutes to write down all the books that you've read or wrote, all the seminars that you've taken or given, all the modalities that you have certifications in, then you can start to see kind of an evolution. And some of these things you'll carry with you for a long time. Like your divine transmitter Danielle has been partnering with us with guides consciously in this lifetime. It's been going on for many lifetimes and much longer than she was conscious of, yet let's say actively since the early 2000s. So that's a few decades where the the spiritual advancement that comes from partnering with us, it carries over into different elevationary stages. And so there may be things that are in your toolbox that you carry with you. Yet we want to synthesize that the game has changed, and your spiritual practices most likely need to evolve and need to change as well. Now, some of the spiritual practices that you've tried in the past that didn't work, that you may have written off, may not have worked because they were visionary, they were more advanced than the vibration of the earth and where consciousness was at. So we don't want to rule out that you may actually be circling back to practices that you once were engaged in earlier on in your path, yet from the new you and from the new earth vibration and experience. And so you are unique. It's a unique time, as you know, in the evolution and consciousness. And sometimes your practices are outdated, or sometimes you may not be engaging in them regularly. That you have this gorgeous toolbox, like you know how to shift in an instant when you go down the rabbit hole of negative thinking. Like you have 18 tools in your toolbox, and yet there may be forgetting to pick up that tool. That can be very common, that you've got the tool that will shift whatever you're experiencing quite quickly. And yet to remember to pick it up, to have that habit, we're using that word in a positive way here, to have a practice, like a yoga practice, not that you're practicing because you're not a master, yet to have that practice to really be having it be a part of your regular life. And so this embodied ascension that we're speaking about is also focusing your time, your energy, your resources, your financial resources, your your capacity to focus on advancing your consciousness. We know if you are visioning, or you're making your vision board, or your list of what you desire in your life, what matters most to you, that it may seem ephemeral to really have your spiritual growth, your spiritual advancement as number one. Like, how is it that you would know that you have evolved your consciousness? And there are different levels to how it is that you would know. And just because something is more of an inner shift than creating, than working out, for example, or taking off weight, or uh, adding money to your bank accounts, like these things can be quantified. Your spiritual evolution can also be not to dilute it or to make it smaller, yet it can also be quantified. It can also be qualified. You notice that high level of refinement where, as you're in more of an ascended mastery state, you don't need the hammer. You can use something that's much more delicate and much more refined, much more elevated. So, in addition to ensuring that you're updating your practices and that you are engaging in them regularly, the other thing we really want to share is the importance of connection and community as you evolve your consciousness. Many of you are on the leading wave of consciousness and you're highly empathic and sensitive. And so you may also have gone back into past life ways of being, of kind of being in the cave and and disconnecting from others to be able to evolve into the level of consciousness that you have. Or maybe you sense that you just feel so different than many of the individuals on the planet that it just doesn't feel very alive or aligned or coherent for you to be doing the things that many individuals are engaged with. And yet that feeling of aloneness or a lack of belonging, it it actually can be an old way, an outdated way of evolving your consciousness. When you are in an aligned community and there's that shared focus of individuals who say, yes, this is a top priority in my life, and you're around others, the path won't be the same because you're unique, yet there'll be similarities. That really is a fast track to evolving your consciousness. There's a lot of reasons for that. And yet we really encourage you to to recognize that, especially if a lot of your spiritual path has been alone, that there may be more to be garnered from being in community, and community with other bipedals, as we say, other human beings, and also community of being with beings of light, ascended masters, councils of light and love, such as ourselves. For then there is also that energetic environment. The practice isn't only going through the motions, or it's not a intellectual experience. It's nourishment, it's vitamins, it's being in a place, in a space where you're very much connected to union, to communion, to connection, to source, to others, and the momentum as well that you can create individually by being in an aligned group field is it's very leveraged, it's very expansive. And so we invite you to recognize as well that you may be craving or have an unquenchable, seemingly thirst for the divine and for higher consciousness, and that is also your light and your love body being asked to be nourished, your energy body being asked to be nourished, your energy body being asked to be embodied, to be used. Just like if you go to the gym, you're building a muscle. You're building muscle. It's the same thing with your energy body, and that your system is requiring frequencies and vibrations that haven't existed on the Earth star thus far, that leading wave of consciousness. And so we've spoken about you're unique and some of your practices may be outdated. And so it's time to add in some more aligned practices that you may not be regularly engaging in your practices. And so that may be also a reminder to more quickly pick up your tools, that the earth has changed, consciousness has changed, and so that also is requiring new levels of embodied, an embodied path of spiritual advancement, and that it's really nourishing to do that in an aligned community, in an aligned community. And so if you're feeling called to be more in divine transmissions community, to be partnering more regularly with us as beings of light and love, a counsel on the level of this new wave of consciousness, then there are a variety of ways that you can do that. And we want to bring attention to our monthly community, our monthly membership, our monthly Ascended Master Playdates. And these Ascended Master Playdates are a group experience where we come together as a community live for on Zoom for 75 minutes a month. And we dive into the latest energy trends and tools and channeled teachings that really are customized for the group that gathers. And we also go into some of our greatest teachings that are a part of our trilogy of light, the books, the temples of light, the council of light, and the tablets of light, as well as the Magdalene manifestation cards. And that even if you've read the books before, they're new to you, when you go into some of those very advanced spiritual practices that maybe you visited 5 years ago, when you go back into them, you're different, and you can access more of the consciousness that was imbued in them. And so we also, as a part of the Ascended Master Playdate, have this opportunity to go more deeply into some of the aligned and advanced embodied spiritual practices. And so an example of that may be in the Council of Light book, Manifesting the Deepest Desires of Your Soul. There are different rays of light that are in different chapters. And your system may be really thirsty for those particular rays of light. And you may be in a cycle where your next embodied ascension step, your next embodied ascension area is about joy. And the Council of Light teachings and the rays of light amplify your joy vibrationally in an embodied way so that you're in a greater state of health and wealth and happiness. and that the utilization of the energetic rays and light codes in practice, where you apply them, where you connect to them, is one in which there is a deepened embodied experience of it. And so we also go beyond what is shared in the books to really assist in applying the spiritual mastery, so that there's not an on-off connection to source, so that you are more quickly transcending negative thoughts or dis-ease in the physical body, or overthinking or hypervigilance in the mental body, that you have more emotional resilience, that you are embodying and seeing the changes and the transformation in your life. And from our perspective, being able to be in a higher vibration consistently it's a key foundation to spiritual mastery, to stay connected for sure. And there's much more that is beyond that as well, that you can be connecting to telepathic communication or multidimensional communication, that you can be really youthing your body by basking in certain frequencies and energies. So if you're feeling called to connect with us more, to be in community, to apply the greatest and the newest spiritual tools, then we invite you to check out our Ascended Master Playdate community. And the link for that is with this podcast. And so we are starting to step aside. We are acknowledging your contribution to the evolution in consciousness. And we acknowledge that again and again and again and again and again and again, because you may be underestimating how much that is contributing to yourself, to others, and to the earth, and to the larger evolution in consciousness. All is light and love, and we are all. Danielle here. Really loved what the guides shared there. So key. And one of my biggest takeaways in my gems was really about how, as we evolve and we change, it's really important to keep current and to update how it is that we are nourishing ourselves and embodying those higher states of consciousness on a regular basis. And so I've been loving the growing community of the Ascended Master Playdates. It's been a long time that the Divine Transmissions community has been asking for a way to connect that is accessible, that you can join for 1 month, you can join for 3 months and have some savings. And so, yeah, it's really been a ton of fun and highly effective, and also a way to, when the guides share a tool, to then be having that as the organic practice that is coming forward. Because sometimes another thing that I notice when that spiritual mastery is either staying stuck in the higher planes, like it's not getting embodied, it's just a concept rather than an experience in everyday life, or there just seems to be a plateau, or like what you used to do, you don't do anymore, you're not picking up the tools, is that sometimes it's because we may not know what that next aligned nourishment or tool is for us. And so I love too the fun of there's no planned theme, there's no planned topic. Of course, it's about embodied ascension or a play date to hang out with the guides and to grow and expand in a very transformative and effective and highly nourishing way. Yet there's no topic. It's the spontaneity of the moment and the spontaneity of what the group is requiring and desiring, and it's very custom tailored. And then after the play date, there is that uh, be applying what's come through and listening to the play date again, and then reading that chapter in the book if they go into a book, or using the card deck if they're using the card decks. So it also it uses the synchronicity, right? Like the synchronicity, especially when you may be going like, yeah, meditating in the way that I used to doesn't really feel light, and you're kind of like, well, what is it? What is that next thing? So that treasure hunt of what the guides are bringing forward in a very bespoke and aligned way is another really fun thing I find about it. All right, well, I'm looking forward to our next play date. They happen on Thursdays, usually around the 20th of the month. Even if you can't join live, you get access to the recording. We include you energetically. So that's also a new paradigm, spiritual mastery of bilocating. So you'll still receive the benefits from it. And each time you tune into the recording, you'll access more of the energies as well. So thanks for tuning in. Much love and bye for now.